Hello, guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing part 77 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlight. So we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people have been making and look at them and kind of just marvel at the biodiversity that surrounds us in our world. And yeah, I've kind of been having some issues recording at the moment, but hopefully this should be a good one going. So we're going to be starting off today with some birds, which I'm obviously very excited to always show off because I love birds. But some very interesting birds. We've got some relatives of the southern cassowary in the Great Game. We've got the two other species of cassowary. We're going to be starting off though with the dwarf cassowary. Oh man, here. So this is the dwarf cassowary, also known as the little cassowary, the mountain cassowary, or Burnett's cassowary, and is the smallest of the three species of living cassowary. And these guys are quite a large bird, but they're smaller than other cassowaries. They get between 99 and 150 centimeters, or 3.25 or 9.2 feet long, and weigh between 17.6 and 26 kilograms, or 39 to 57 pounds. And you can see they're quite similar to your typical southern cassowary. They've got the long black fur and all that, but you can see the main difference is that their cast is not quite as big. They're quite a bit shorter, especially shorter legs. The wattles are more just blue, and then there's some pink at the back there. A little bit more tame, but still really, really beautiful animals. So in terms of the habitat, they are typically found throughout lots of montane forests across New Guinea, New Britain, and Yapen Island. And they live in elevations up to 3,300 meters or 10,000 feet, and areas without other species of cassowary. But they will also live in lowland areas, and their range is estimated to be about 258,000 square kilometers. And in terms of their diet, they feed mainly on frozen fruits and all that. We'll have a look at the babies, or we'll talk about them. Usually feed on frozen fruits, or not frozen, fallen fruits, and fruits that have been picked from shrubs, along with small insects and animals. And they actually use the crest on their heads to sort through the leaf litter and reveal many sources of food. So it's almost like a little hoe to move through the undergrowth with. And they feed on many sources of food, such as fungi, insects, plant tissue, and small vertebrates, which includes lizards and frogs. And they are a solitary bird, so they really only pair during the breeding season, and it's possible that these guys undertake seasonal migrations in parts of its range. Look at this cute little baby. Let's have a look at the female while we're talking about them. So, the dwarf cassowary itself has been classified as near threatened by the IUCN because of issues such as habitat loss, being hunted for food, and habitat degradation, and luckily are often kept in captivity. However, they were downgraded from this as least concern in 2015, as they are considered stable, and there's a lot less hunting pressure than there was in the past. So they've been considered doing pretty well. But yeah, really, really awesome cassowary here. That came out wonderfully. Look at him run off and do the thing. Look at her run off, technically. So we're going to have a look at her bigger and better cousin. We have got the northern cassowary. Just before we start, both the northern and the dwarf cassowary were both done by Vinceabled. So he did a wonderful job with that. So we're going to be looking at the one wattled cassowary, or the northern cassowary, or the golden-necked cassowary. As you can see, the kind of common names really fit. These guys are a large, stocky bird from northern New Guinea and one of the three living species of cassowary. You can see they've got this hard, stiff black plumage with the facial skin that's much more blue, and then the neck is a lot more golden. This is in contrast to the southern cassowary. And they can measure up to 149 centimeters, or 4 foot 8 in long, and stand between 1.5 and 1.8 meters, or 4 foot to 5 foot 9 in height. They're generally kind of just slightly smaller than the southern cassowary, but still really beautiful animals. In terms of their habitat, they range across coastal swamps and lowlands in northern New Guinea and Japan and areas like that. And typical to other cassowaries, they are a shy and solitary bird, and they feed on all sorts of different things, such as berries, fruits, and small animals such as mice, rats, small invertebrates, small vertebrates like snakes, lizards, frogs, all of them. And they will also eat dead animals when they find them. And actually, the young have actually been observed to eat the feces of the male, raising them and their clutch mates. And adults will eat their own feces because that often contains undigested fruits and allows them to get that nutrients again. And they make grunting and hissing sounds, as you can hear here, just like other cassowaries. And in the breeding season, the female is polygamous, so they lay 3 to 5 green eggs on a well camouflaged nest prepared by the male. Then she leaves and nests and eggs to find another mate, and then the male will incubate and raise those chicks alone for the 9 months of their lives. And similar to the situation to the dwarf cassowary, these guys are subject to over habitat loss and overhunting in some areas, but are listed at least concern because the populations are actually larger than previously estimated, though hunting is still considered a large threat to these guys and the dwarf cassowary because native people will use their bones for eggs and chicks will be raised for meat as well. And as logging takes up more areas as well, that will become more of a problem. And the estimated the numbers of the population is a little under 9,500. So still relatively common. Really wonderful animal here. So both done by Vinceabled. Really did a wonderful job with these guys. Next, we're going to move on to a really cool fish. We got even a shark in our midst. Really awesome animal. So I've got the short-finned Mako by Jen, Buffzoo, and Leaf. See if you can spot one in the water there. There we are. Really, really beautiful. What's this do now as an adult? So this is the short-fin Mako, which is a large mackerel shark that's often just referred to as the Mako shark, and related to the long-fin Mako. Mako comes from the Maori language, so Mako is kind of that dialect, and also kind of Mango in Samoan, or Mago in Samoan. These guys, as you can see, they're fairly large species of shark. Growth rates actually appear to be somewhat accelerated compared to other lamnids, and they can get on average about 3.2 meters or 10 feet long and between 160 to 135 kilograms, which is 132 to 298 pounds. And the species is what you consider sexually dimorphic, with females typically being a little bit larger than the males. And the largest specimens that we kind of know about was a large mature female about 12 feet long or 12 foot long or 3.8 meters and weighed between about 570 kilograms or 1,260 pounds. Though there have been reports of some larger and some being like over 1,000 kilograms, but often it kind of just goes neither here or there. But in terms of the ecology, they live in offshore temperate and tropical waters pretty much across the world. And these guys are pelagic species, so they typically like deep water, but they like to hang out on the surface about 150 meters or so, or from land, and they're occasionally closer to shore. And they're actually one of the few endothermic sharks, so they actually have endothermy, which means they can have their parts of their body, or regional endothermy parts of their body, a little bit higher temperature than the water around them, which allows them to live in slightly cooler waters. And they're often found in also Canadian waters, Argentina, Mexico, Atlantic as well. And in terms of feeding, they're pretty generous. They will feed on like cephalopods, and also bony fish such as swordfish, tunas, things like that. But also will eat seabirds, porpoises, other sharks, sea turtles, pretty much whatever they can get their mouths around, because they have these quite large jaws, almost very similar to a great white, that allows them to eat stuff like that. They actually need to consume about 3% of their body weight every day, and it takes them about 2 days to digest an average-sized meal, which is actually pretty fast. These guys like to live fast and swim fast. They're very fast species. And in terms of their behavior, they're a fast species, and they jump in the air, which makes them a highly sought-after game fish because they're kind of fun to fish for. And in terms of their reproduction, they have a yolk sac and they're ovoviviparous, so they give birth to live young, with the developing embryos in their body be eating like unfertilized eggs, which is also really cool. Let's see if you can find a little baby as we talk about them. There's a baby. Little cutie. So they also will hang out on the uterus there for about the 5 to 18 month gestation period, and they do not engage in sibling cannibalism unlike the tiger shark, and the 4 to 18 surviving pups are born live in late winter and early spring at a length of about 70 centimeters long, and the females may rest for 18 months after birth before mating again, and they actually will bear young on average every 3 years or so they're very slow breeding. But they make up with that with very long lives, and it's estimated that the maximum age for males And some studies suggest that they get up to about 29 years and females 32 years. And longevity is considered that 30-year range, but it's very possible that they could live longer. And it's also suggested that these guys have the largest brain-to-body ratio, or at least one of them, in sharks. And it shows that they could potentially have quite good intelligence, as they can often differentiate between a lot of shapes with their electroreception tests and things like that. So that's also very interesting. So in terms of their relationship to humans, they are often hunted for sport or fished for sport because they're one of the fastest species in the world. They're kind of fun to angle because they like to jump and run around and swim around and all that. And there have been attempts to keep them in captivity, but it's very hard to keep sharks like these, which are pelagic or very open water sharks, in captivity for quite a few reasons. And there have only been about 9 attacks from short fins between 1580 and 2017, in which only one was fatal, so you're very unlikely to get attacked by this kind of shark. And in terms of their conservation status, they are considered endangered by the IUCN, but have been uplisted to vulnerable in 2019 and near threatened in 2007. And they're kind of considered Apex 2, which means you need to have a permit to be able to trade with the species. And as I mentioned, those threats often include some of the more typical things that you find in the ocean. So fishing, climate change, things like that have also been issues for these guys. Yeah, really, really wonderful fish, and big fan of how these guys have come out. So that's the short fin Mako that was done by Jen, Buffzoo, and Leaf. Next, we're going to move on to some mammals. Who doesn't love mammals? Next, we've got a really cool little rodent. We've got what is called Desmart's Hutia, also known as the Cuban Hutia, which I'll refer to them from now on. These guys are quite a small little rodent here that are really, really cute. Well, they're quite big comparatively. They are found in Cuba, and only found in Cuba, though there's extinct subspecies from the Cayman Islands. They weigh up to about 8.5 kilograms or 19 pounds, which makes them the largest extant species of Hutia, though there were extinct ones that got far larger. So in terms of their description here, they're pretty big for rodents. They can get up to a head to body length of about 31 to 60 centimeters. That's about 12 to 24 inches, with a tail that's about 14 to 29 centimeters, or 5 to 11 inches, and they weigh in between 2.8 and 8.5 kilograms, or 6 to 18 pounds. And you can see they're generally covered by this brown fur with a slight reddish color to it sometimes. And they walk around with a waddling gait as well, and they have 5 toes with large claws that allow them to climb, as you can see here. And one thing as well is that their stomach is in 3 compartments by constrictions of the gut, and it's actually one of the most complex guts of any rodents, so they almost like independently evolved to be able to ruminate like a lot of ruminants do. So these guys typically are found in a wide range of habitats. So they're found in northern Cuba. They can be found in lots of mangroves, and southern populations prefer terrestrial habitats. And though they can only be found on Cuba, they're quite widespread through this range. They can be found on the main island, and there's a subspecies from the Cayman Island, but they got wiped out after colonials kind of wiped them out. But in terms of their behavior, these guys normally live in pairs, but they can be found individually in small groups. So they're kind of pretty generalist in that regard. Have a look at this wonderful female here. Look at this queen. They are diurnal, but do not burrow. So they nest during the night in like hollows or rocks or in trees. And they are omnivorous, so they typically eat mostly bark, leaves, and fruit, but they will take small vertebrates such as insects, small vertebrates such as lizards, but also small insects, things like that. And both males and females mark their territory with urine, so they use their scent to mark it. They breed throughout the year, but their gestation period is between 110 to 140 days, which is normally about 120 to 126 days, although peak breeding season is June, July. They normally produce between 1 and 3 young, which each weigh about 230 grams, or 8 ounces, and they're young are precocial, so they're born with fur, fully open eyes, and ability to walk, and they're basically able just to follow around mum and do everything. And they are weaned from their mother's milk at about 5 months old, and they reach sexual maturity at about 10 months old, and in captivity they can live between 8 to 11 years. So their interaction with humans, they are considered least concern, but they are hunted for food. Because they make a substantial meal because they're big animals. And they have made it illegal to kill or hunt huitas with a permit, just to protect their populations. And in some areas, they're so abundant they're considered a pest and cause damage to the crops. But they are a protected species, technically. So yeah, very, very interesting little guy here. So this was done by Ginger Toast. I really do love Ginger Toast mod. He really brings weird and wacky animals that I love talking about. I like talking about the animals that we don't often get to talk about. So next, we're going to be moving on to Monkey. We got Monkey. We have got by Monsoon. We have got the Silvery lutang. I believe that's how you say it. With a cute little baby there. How adorable. So also known as the silvered leaf monkey or the silvery langur. These guys are an arboreal old world monkey from Malaysia, Sumatra, and Borneo. So these guys are a medium-sized monkey with these long prehensile tails with the silvery fur. That's where they get their name. Also with dark faces and things like that. Really, really beautiful. And in terms of their size, the females will range between 46 and 51 centimeters, or 18 to 20 inches in head to body length, and weigh about 13 pounds or 5.7 kilograms, and with a tail length of 67 to 75 centimeters, so 26 to 30 inches. Well, males are typically a little bit larger, getting at about 50 to 58 centimeters or 20 to 23 inches in length, an average weight of about 6.6 kilograms or 15 pounds, and a tail length of 67 to 75 centimeters or about 26 to 30 inches. And like other langurs, they actually have a large three-chambered stomach that allows them to digest the cellulose of their diet and allows the fermentation in their gut, similar to how a lot of ruminants do it, which is very interesting. And their intestines are actually unusually long, even compared to other langurs. And they have a number of pockets along its left that allow this fermentation and being able to digest the foods that they eat, which is also really awesome. But yeah, as I mentioned, these guys are common. They're found in Malaysia, Borneo, and Sumatra, so quite a wide range. And these guys are specialist folivores, so they typically eat a lot more leaves than a lot of other monkeys. And although they will eat fruit, seeds, and flowers, that usually compares to about 10% of their diet, so they mainly eat leaves and stuff like that. And because of this, they do not live in the same parts of the forest as other monkeys, so these guys will tend to live more in the middle canopy, while the other monkeys will live, that are more eating fruits, will live more on the top of the canopy. So in terms of their predators, they'll be preyed on by dholes, leopards, binturongs will actually eat on infants as well, and snakes will eat them, so kind of things like that. And in terms of their behavior, these silver lutangs are diurnal, like other monkeys, and will travel in large groups of about 9 to 40 individuals. That is usually with one adult male, with a lot of adult females and their infants. And they really leave the trees, and which provides them protection, and they have a home range of about 20 to 43 acres, or about 49 to 106 acres. And although they may overlap with some neighboring groups, during the day individuals may travel up to 500 meters, or 1,600 feet, through the forest, with some forming groups that separate and all that. And these guys have harem base, so the females will remain in their group for the entire life, while the males will kind of go off and make their own groups and make their own harems, things like that. And once they overlap, they'll come in contact to each other, and sometimes they can be feisty, sometimes they can be peaceful, but mainly it's just peaceful, so they just kind of hang out and do their own thing. And in terms of reproduction, these guys will breed year-round, but there's no clear breeding season. What we'll do that was have a look at the little baby. Look how cute this little guy is. Very, very cute. They give birth to a single baby after about a gestation period of 181 to 200 days. And the young are about 400 grams or 14 ounces in weight when they're born and measure about 20 centimeters, or about 7.9 inches, and are well developed. And you can see silver lutangs are also born with this orange fur, which and white hair on their face, but as they grow older, they get that silvery look of the adults. And their skin will rapidly change like that, and they reach the adult pattern at about 3 to 5 months old. And the young are cared for by the females communally, so all females will take care of the babies, and they're not weaned for about 18 months, even though their biological mother stops lactating at just after 12 months. And the young are sexually mature as soon as they finish weaning, and on average, the female will give birth to her first baby in 35 months of age. And they're quite long-lived. I believe that these guys lived up to 30 years in captivity, so very, very long-lived animal. So in terms of the conservation, the class is vulnerable by the IUCN because their habitat is really threatened by logging and the development because of oil plantations and things like that. And the species is also threatened because it's hunted by meat and captured for the pet trade. But other than that, it's considered quite common and doing okay. So really wonderful species there. That's why they're considered vulnerable. And that was done by Monsoon. Next, we've got one done by Leaf and Jen. really awesome animal here. We've got the Charon Peccary, as you can kind of see here. They're all having a sleep right now. One of the 3 living species of Peccary, I believe. And these guys, there's only about 3,000 of these guys left in the wild, and very interesting. They're notable because they're not the type species of the genus, despite being the only living representative. And these guys are considered a Lazarus taxon because an extinct species was described, and then these guys were put in their genus. So that's very interesting. They were actually discovered as a fossil first before they were discovered in real life. So that's, I mean, well, not in real life, but in living specimens. So that's really interesting. In terms of the habitat, they typically live in hot, dry areas in the Grand Charon, which is about 140,000 square kilometers, where there's few scattered trees, but they mainly feed on vegetation such as scrub vegetation and things like that. And they have these well-developed sinuses that allow them to filter out all the dust and stuff that get in their noses. And they also have small feet that allow them to move among the spiny plants. And you can see they're the largest of the generally 3 species of peccary, and they have many pig-like features, though they are not that closely related to pigs. They're a peccary, so it's slightly different. They typically, as you can see, they have this long bristle-like hair and this like kind of, what would you call it, this leathery snout as well, with this kind of scarf going around the neck there that's quite white. So not too different than that. And in terms of their babies, as we can see here, look at these little cuties. The young are generally born between September and December, but litters have been found almost year-round, and births have been linked to periods of food abundance and rainfall, and the average number of embryos that has been recorded is approximately 2 to 2.72, with females leaving their herd to give birth and then returning afterwards. And these little babies are precocial, so they're able to run after a few hours after being born and keep up with mum. And their pelts, as you can see there, the young resembles that of the adults, typically, and there's no strong sexual dimorphism within these guys. So these guys often travel in herds of up to 20 individuals, and they're active during the day, which is where they mostly travel. And they'll travel a cycle within their home range about 42 days, and then they'll kind of monitor their own things. They also make all sorts of different sounds, where they will chatter their gums, chatter their teeth, and ranging from grunts as well. And as a defensive strategy, the members of the herd will actually line up in a defensive wall that makes the herd harder to target. And they also will produce a milky, odorous substance for marking trees that allows them to mark their territory. And they also defecate using particular like stations where they'll all go and poop in one go. In terms of their food habits, these guys feed on particularly tough vegetation, so that's a little bit interesting about their ecology. They feed on various cacti and things like that, which they use their tough snout to kind of rip the spines off, and use the teeth as well to kind of break it up. And they're actually specialized to break down acids in these cacti, so that allows them to kind of eat this diet that a lot of animals can't eat. And the species of peccary also seeks out salt licks formed by ant mounds and construction projects, which is also very interesting, where they gain essential minerals such as calcium, magnesium, and chlorine from these salt licks, which is also very interesting. So in terms of their conservation status, they are considered endangered. There's only about 3,000 of them left, and they're endemic to a very isolated region of South America that makes them highly vulnerable to human activity. And herd numbers have been decreasing because of habitat loss and fragmentation, though their range has actually been increasing. Their range has quickly transformed into large, like Texan-style ranches, which is very bad for them. And hunting also continues, though there have been an unidentified disease plaguing them in the past couple of years. But there is a population established in zoos in North America and Europe, with also preserves being established in Paraguay, but they haven't been heavily enforced. So they're doing okay. They are endangered, but not too bad. Really cute little guys, though. So again, that was done by Jen and Leaf. We're going to be moving on to another subspecies here. This one was done by Ginger Toast. We have got the Tian Shan Dhole, which is kind of the more fluffy version of the dhole that we got in the Southeast Asia pack. So this subspecies, also known as the Siberian dhole, the Western Asiatic dhole, or the Northern dhole, these guys are found in the Intali and Tian Shan mountains, and possibly around Pama and Kashmir. So these guys are somewhat smaller, and they have slightly wider skulls and a much lighter straw-colored coat. and they're generally about the same size. They're not too different from your typical Dhole. They also have this lighter belly as well, which helps a little bit with the counter shading. And in terms of their habitat, they're typically found in mountain ranges and open areas, such as the Tian Shan or Antali Mountains. And they were once widespread across northeast and central Asia, from Taxononia, I believe you said, Transgnonia, I believe I say that. And they formerly lived in areas such as Siberia, Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan, and Turkmenistan, though they still actually occur in Tibet as well, with a few living in reserves in northern China, though they have not been reported in Pakistan. So this is one of those still common species, but there are a lot of areas in their range where they don't really live anymore, which is very sad. And in terms of their diet, these guys are not too different from other Dholes. They pretty much hunt whatever that's big enough. They'll feed on Siberian ibexes, roe deer, wild boar, marel, ankar, and also musk deer and reindeer. So they're quite generalist in that regard. They'll feed on pretty much almost anything they can get their mouths around. And look at these cute little babies. How adorable are these little guys? Really came out wonderfully. And you can see the adults here. I think Ginger Toast kind of made these because a lot of people wanted the fluffy Dholes, but these guys are a little bit fluffier than your ones that you got in the Southeast Asia pack. Still really, really wonderful. And next, we're moving on from dogs to bears. We have got the Atlas Bear, done by Gabboi and GiornoPizza, which is really, really awesome. So these guys are very interesting. So these guys are the only bear from North Africa. And they're an extinct population, and went extinct in historical times, around like the past couple thousand years. They were the only native bear in Africa that survived into modern times. And they once inhabited the Atlas Mountains in areas such as Libya and Morocco, but they're now thought to be extinct. And you can see they got this brownish-black color to them, and they lacked a white muzzle. Their fur in the other parts as well was reddish-orange. And they had muzzles shorter than those of the American black bear, but they were a little bit thicker. They also were said to get to about 9 feet, or about 2.7 meters long, and weigh up to 1,000 pounds, or 450 kilograms. And they apparently fed on roots, acorns, and nuts, and they seem to be mostly herbivorous. But since most bears today are omnivorous, they probably would have eaten a lot of meat as well, and scavenged, and eaten small mammals as well. So another really interesting thing about this guy is that the mitochondrial DNA studies that looked into the bones of these guys, it suggests that these guys actually belong to two distinct clades, which is one that's indistinguishable from the bears that are found in the Iberian Peninsula, while the other clade is highly distinct and is either closely related to polar bears or elastic brown bears, and outside the group that contains all other brown bear microlineages. So it's possibly a very ancient population of bears that kind of moved to that area, and their genes were preserved in that population, which is very interesting. And they actually do not seem to be closely related to the Middle Eastern brown bear populations, despite being quite close geographically. And it suggests that the colonization of Africa by brown bears was actually quite early, and it's possible that could have happened when the Ice Age was strong and the Gibraltar Strait was kind of able to be walked upon by bears and things like that. And that's kind of, you see in North Africa, there's a lot of animals from Europe that live in North Africa, such as the Barbary deer. There's also the Barbary lion and the Barbary leopard that also went extinct. Elephants, aurochs. So it's a really cool mix in North Africa, that area there, of both European and African faunas, which is also very interesting. So the decline of these bears was actually attributed to the Roman Empire, because as the empire expanded into North Africa, these guys would have been hunting and capturing these bears, using them for sport and gladiator matches, where they'd fight lions, tigers, and other animals as well. And obviously that's kind of considered really bad, and no one does that anymore. And thousands were hunted for sport, and they really finally became extinct in the late 19th century, as the last bear was killed by hunters in 1870. And the Tian Mountains in northern Morocco, and hunting activity and obviously collecting them for these gladiator fights was obviously probably the main reason these guys sadly went extinct. But really, really beautiful. Look at these cute little cubs though. How adorable. Really cute little baby bear. So that came out wonderfully. I'm a big fan. And Gabboi and GiornoPizza did a wonderful job with that. But last, but most certainly not least, we have got the false killer whale, done by Jen, Buffzoo, and Leaf. So a really interesting animal here. Let's see if we can get one swimming at the bottom of the water there. There we are. Wonderful. So, the false killer whale, or is a species of only oceanic dolphin, and the only extant representative of the genus Pseudo-orca. So these guys are found worldwide, but they mainly live in tropical regions, and they get the name the false killer whale because they look quite similar to the orca, or your typical killer whale, and but they're slightly different, so they get the name the false one. And they're quite big, actually. They can reach a maximum length of up to 6 meters or 20 feet. Those sizes can vary a lot. And they're also highly social and all that. Very interesting species. In terms of their general sizes, though, the average body length is about 4.9 meters or 16 feet, with females reaching about 6 feet, 5 meters or 16.4 feet in length at about 1,200 kilograms or 2,600 pounds. Sorry, I'm a bit coughing. And males typically get about 20 feet and 2,000 kilograms. And but however, on average, the males and females are about the same size when generally, but males typically can sometimes get slightly larger. Newborns of these guys typically are about 1.5 to 2.1 meters, or 4'9" to 6'9" in length, and their body temperature typically ranges from 36 to 37 degrees, or 96 to 99 degrees Fahrenheit, which is increased during extensive activity as well. Let's see if we can find one here. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Are they all on land now? Yeah, they're going to do their thing. I'll let you go and swim. These guys reach physical maturity at about 8 to 14 years old, and their maximum age in captivity is 57 years for males and 62 for females. And sexual maturity happens at about 8 to 11 years old. And in one population, calving occurs every 7 years, and in others, it can be year-round. Just depends, though they usually calve year-round, but though this usually occurs in late winter. Gestation for these guys takes about 15 months, with females lactating for 9 months, or between 9 months and 2 years. We'll have a look at these little babies here. Look how cute these little guys are. Adorable. And they're one of the 3 toothed whales, along with pilot whales, and both species of pilot whales. They have a sizable post-reductive lifespan that's after menopause, and menopause typically occurs between 45 and 55 years, so quite similar to humans. Being a toothed whale as well, they can also echolocate, so they have this large melon at the front of their face here with lots of fat that allows them to amplify sounds that they put through. And in terms of their behavior, these guys are known to interact with several dolphins, such as like common bottlenose dolphins, melon-headed whales, pygmy killer whales, and all that. Very, very interesting. These guys also will have distress calls and protect other species from predators, aid in childbirth, and help remove the afterbirth, which has been seen in, and interact sexually, we could say, with bottlenose dolphins and pilot whales. And these guys typically live in large pods that can, especially in mass strandings of about like 20 members, though these large groups can get up to about 500 whales in these large groups that they travel in. And then they will typically break up into smaller groups and join up together. And they typically live in a matriarchal society, so the mothers will kind of lead the pod instead of the fathers, with the mothers heading the pod instead of the fathers, and then the males will kind of go off and do their own thing. And the false killer whale is probably polygamous, or with males mating with multiple females. So in terms of their ecology, the false killer whale feeds on squids and lots of sorts of fish. Like, they typically will feed on large species of fish as well, and like mahi, and tuna. And in the Eastern Pacific, they've actually been known to target smaller dolphins during tuna fishing operations. They've actually been known to attack sperm whales, and one instance against a calf of humpback whale. And they've actually been killer whales have been known to prey on these guys as well, but they also face threats from large sharks, though there's no documented instances of this. So their general populations are widespread. So they're typically found in tropical and semi-tropical oceans, though they're not typically found between 50 latitude north and south, and they like to live in open oceans. And the population estimates we don't really know, but it's considered to be common. The population around the Eastern Pacific is believed to be the low tens of thousands, and the population in Hawaii seems to be declining. So in terms of the human interaction, they actually do well in captivity, and there's been a few zoos and aquariums that have had them, such as like the Vancouver Aquarium that's rescued them, but obviously sometimes they died. and they've been known to actually approach and offer fish caught by humans, caught to humans by diving and boating, but they take fish off of hooks as well. So they're very intelligent, and they've actually been killed in drive hunts as well, as they use the sound of individuals in the herd to cause mass strandings and corral them. So that's kind of sad. But in terms of the conservation, I believe they're considered least concern, near threatened actually, near threatened. So there are some issues such as like hunting. Climate change is also believed to be an issue. And there is a population in Hawaii that's endangered, that's about 150 individuals. And a lot of these issues as well, there's mass strandings. So often, since they're so social, they'll often group together, and if they get stuck on land, they'll all pile on land, and then they'll almost like all get stuck together. So that can lead to mass strandings of up to like 120 to 300 individuals, which is pretty big. But yeah, it's still a really wonderful animal, and we'll have a look at these little babies as well as he's swimming around. Look at this little cutie. Really done a wonderful job. So again, this mod was done by Jen Leaf and Buffzoo. They really did knock it out of the park with this wonderful mod, and I like seeing more whales around. So yeah, I think this would be a very great place to end the video. So credit to everyone who made these wonderful mods, and yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified of uploading anything. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.